Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Cover Korea. We've got 6 weeks of regular season action in the book. We had the Road Show, the second time we've been overseas for the LCK this year, this time in Vietnam, over in Hanoi, where we welcomed some of the most passionate fans of Gen G, Hanwha Life Esports, and the Homefront owners in Kiwoom DRX. It was also a shocking benching this week where Nongshim, they didn't bench for their guy that they had last year. That's right, Scout for Calyx. It was Pleta, a return into the support role, and Lehends getting benched without notice, which was super, super surprising. And the Bros have a franchise tying 8 games in a row, 4 series in a row, and have the third longest win streak in the LCK, thanks to some pretty good scheduling, but have the potential to move it into even 6 in a row, 12 games in a row. It's been a very unique week here, Wolf. Maybe not the craziest in terms of drama, but we start with KT Rolster and DPlus Kia, two teams that are interlinked, both next in the standings last year. And KT, having lost multiple games in a row, I think it was 3 in a row, after the EWC qualifier, plus being surprised by the Bros last week and losing the big head-to-head matchup with Hanwha Life Esports. They were reeling. They go up against DPlus Kia, Aiming's former team, and they bop them 2-0, despite the fact that BDD was playing like shit. What did you make of that series?
BDD had such a bad week. It's crazy. Like he was getting bodied in lane by like Vikla. So I mean, not to say that like Vikla can't have a good day, and yes, junglers were involved, but like BDD, like you guys probably remember the Flash Talia play where he just totally whiffed it and solo killed himself. It was just really strange the way that he played. Like it's one of those weeks where if you told me, like, if you showed me the BDD clips only and showed me the context of like, did they win the game? Did you win the series? I would have been like, he must be playing sick, or there must be something going on with this guy because he's not himself. And that may actually be the case. Like, there's been a lot of rumblings and rumors about KT having internal fighting. The most I guess legit of those rumors or reports was from Kuro on his stream where he was discussing like KT's current struggles, saying that like he's pretty sure or that he's heard that they're fighting internally and having a lot of issues decision making wise, and he was like, I think they need to actually explode and fight and let it all out so they can move forward. So Kuro obviously very much in the know, very attached to a lot of these pro gaming teams, very close to a lot of players, so I do kind of trust his read on that. But ultimately, even though BD had a horrible series and a horrible week, frankly, against DPlus, specifically, he had a really bad time. They had insanely bad early games, and DPlus just couldn't figure out how to win the game. It was absolutely crazy. Like KT still were like, okay, I know what to do. We're gonna play defensively. We're gonna play around our defensive setups in our jungle. And DPlus never forced KT into an uncomfortable position where KT had to take a bad fight where they didn't have vision. They just kept forcing fights into KT over and over and over again. And KT was like, well, that's what we were hoping for. Thank God you guys are throwing. And I feel like that is the kind of play that if you're actually a really good team, you know how to do, where you're like, okay, maybe they'll mess it up. We have to create a scenario where they can mess it up, and then we can potentially steal this game away. And that's what like the best teams do. That's what T1 does. That's what Gen G does. Now these teams are rarely in losing positions like this where they need to make, basically pull a rabbit out of a hat and force some weird situation where they can win a miracle team fight. But that's why, for example, T1 is so known for their Barons. Because they know when they're behind, they can use a Baron to force an unfavorable position for the team that's 5,000 gold ahead of them and win the game. Like, they do that all the time when they're behind. Again, I say all the time because they're usually not in those losing game states all too often. But when they are, they know how to turn that around. Like T1's incredible comeback against KT that we had in LCK Cup, where they're like 10,000 plus gold behind and they just defend, and take that really great fight in the base. Like, that's the kind of situations you have to set up. KT did that part really well, which I think gave me a little bit of hope that maybe this team is still actually quite a strong contender. Maybe this team is actually made of something better than some early season weakness from like other squads like DPlus and or sorry, well they did beat or DPlus earlier on the season, but like I meant to say T1 Gen G, which they beat in the very first week and then had an easier schedule. So like AT looked a little fake for a little while there. Like we were like, okay, are they fake? Were they just kind of overperforming and everyone else is underperforming? This DPlus series made me feel like there is some really good decision making here in this team. They know what to do in the late game really well. They just need to fix the early game. They did not fix it against BNK. Against BNK, the early game was still a problem. BNK finished the games, so they didn't end up losing.
Okay. Hold on. I think the BNK KT series was less about KT and more about BNK coming in with a very prepped draft. They had the Mel Skarner support bot lane. They had Olaf on the top side of the map. And then also just the fact that BNK Furex are now 9-1, the winningest team on Saturday Showdown, which is just a stupid fact. It's so dumb, but also 9-1 is a very large sample size on Saturday Showdown. I will never vote against BNK Furex again, unless maybe they're playing an undefeated Gen G or something like that. However, they came in super prepped, and it felt really refreshing because we're starting to see just handshakes in the draft. This was the like a very very big departure from like, all right, well, just handshake. You take Ash Seraphine, we'll take Lucian Milio. Like it wasn't that at all. Like it felt like BNK read KT, and then going back to your early game KT or early season KT. I'm starting to think that just Perfect is playing well, but on top of the fact that he had the early meta read and at the beginning of the season. And so he was so far better than everyone else. You didn't have to put resources into him. We spent so much time in this Saturday Showdown like pre-show setting up the bot lanes. Like, okay, Taeyun has been so key for them. Aiming has been so key in the win against DPlus Kia. Kellen has been secretly good, but as much as Taeyun ended up winning POM, that first game was not about that. That first game was about Clear and Raptor just kind of not letting Perfect and Cuz breathe. Cuz was just Cuz got bullied out of his jungle early, and then I felt like we all felt it. Cuz just tilted off the map, was just like fucking
He
Xinjiaoing in.
he was like it was reportable behavior. Like it was really rough. Until you started mentioning Cuz, I actually had kind of forgotten like how much he just straight up flipped coins to try to get like he was trying to get back his loss. He was really hoping, and I think against a really bad team or like a challengers team, if he was playing against a challengers team, which he wouldn't be, but you know what I mean, like the concept of like a team that would make the wrong choice a lot of the time or won't be punishing. I think that type of play, you can get away with it. You might even get away with it in solo queue, where you just go, I'm a hands check here, and I'm probably better, and like I've got some people with me.
Yeah.
But the BNK were like, no, we actually know what this comp does. We're actually going to punish you every time. We're confused by your engage. That's true. Like because it's like maybe I'll catch him off guard. They're like, whoa, I didn't expect him to int there. Like that's kind of like they were very surprised.
Yeah. I mean, I think you named it best. This was very solo Q-esque. Like this looked like your Yasuo performance, where he is 0-10 or 10-0. Like that is what Cuz was trying to do in a pro game, because you could see the angle. It wasn't a large angle, but you could see it, but it was bad, and it ended up being bad. So I think BDD having struggle, Cuz looking tilted, and then Perfect just falling behind. This really felt like now it was Aiming's turn to try and drag the team across the line, and he wasn't able to do it in game one because of the draft. They get Ash Seraphine, Taeyun, Kellen get Mel Skarner, and we're all like excited, interested, confused, trying to figure out. You were like, we're figuring this out in real time, and so was Aiming, and he wasn't able to win game one. And then in game two, Kellen on the Bard holding people in place with the tempered baits, allowing Caitlyn to put down traps on top of him, and then Taeyun pops off on the Caitlyn, gets super late game, and that's where Caitlyn blows people up, and he gets POM.
Yeah, I mean it was. I think in some ways great by BNK. In other ways, KT in game two, I was more disappointed. The Mel Skarner was it was just cool. Like it was a really good draft. Team played really well. But the setup was insane, and the Halo Blades corner was something apparently some people had been talking about. Of course, we found out afterwards. Like a lot of people have been experimenting with this. It's been a concept for a while because of his passive, and I mean, even on the broadcast, I hadn't even considered that would have been why he went Halo Blades. Like we did discuss this briefly on the day, but it was just cool tech, right? And I think we might see it again at some point. But it was B&K and their coaching staff, and Kellen specifically also, who was putting in the work, putting in the reps, was playing it in solo queue, who came up with this idea, and it was just really cool to see it executed. That's the kind of stuff we used to see from like T1, DPlus, in the past. Like Gen.G was never really the team that did the cool strat all too often, even though Canyon moved into that team, and it felt like a lot of the time on old DPlus and old Dom1, Canyon was kind of the guy who was like, hey, let's try this weird jungle pick, let's try this weird draft. When he went into Gen.G, he just went back into the Gen.G machine where their style has always been just, we've already perfected this. We're going to play the meta. We're going to play as standard as possible, but as best as possible. Like the best way of playing the standard meta picks. They don't think outside the box too much as a team, and they haven't for many years. But this was refreshing to see a team like B&K, who is on the lower end of things. We only normally see our top teams do this. And as you guys know, we're watching this, we probably watch other regions. Kind of the whole world just copies Korea and isn't that innovative oftentimes. And in Korea, it's like even more so, like that the bottom teams just copy the top teams and they aren't as good at it. And that can be incredibly frustrating as a viewer as well. Sometimes we're like, okay, well, you guys just drafted like what Gen.G drafted, but you have no skill to back it up. Like you don't have the players to back this up. You don't have the understanding of the jungle mid 2v2, etc. So this was cool to see because it was just so different. But for KT, I kind of walk out of this week feeling disappointed in the laning phase for Bdd and some of the decisions of Cuz, but also knowing that they got caught a little bit off guard by this. They also had the great comeback games against DPlus. DPlus did mess it up. Like, there's no denying that, but also KT were able to find that and navigate through that, and like those games should not have been winnable for KT at all. Against a caliber of team of DPlus. Like if DNS has a lead like DPlus had, you're like, well, of course they'll lose. Like I'm not even sure until the Nexus explodes that they can win this. But like for DPlus, you're like, okay, this should be done. Like with this caliber of players, with this coordination that we've seen for the most part this year, should have been a win. DPlus did mess it up, but I think there's two sides to that story. So I'm hoping that I'm going to look at the matches for KT next week.
They got 1-1 game. That's exactly what I was doing. 1-1 game, 1-1 weeks for the rest of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's rough. Like QMDRX is their first opponent next week, but then they have Hanoi Life. So it's like, okay, you're not prepping for QM.
Oh, wait, no, Hanoi. Sorry.
Okay, you caught me off guard. Okay. Yeah,
wait, you're talking about KT, right?
QM. Yeah.
Yeah, they have week 7, they have Kiwoom and then Hanoi.
Yeah. So like I think you focus on the Hanwha prep. You probably don't even really spend that much time on Kiwoom. But like that could create a trap game, but I don't think so. But it's a tough week if you're facing Hanwha at the end of the week because you really want to try to ride some of the momentum of the Kiwoom game, but it is going to be all the way until Sunday where they have their Hanwha game. So there's like some extra time there. They have 2 full days. And then they play at the beginning of the week against Nongshim in week 8. It gets tougher later on, like you mentioned, the 1-1 days. But for KT, they should still be looking for a road to MSI run. Like they're not going to get knocked out of that. I don't think that's likely or really even possible unless they lost everything. So KT still in a relevant spot, but I think to call them a top 2 team right now, we absolutely cannot anymore. Like we just cannot do it.
And that's the sad thing, right? And that's why I'm saying the rest of their season's 1 weeks, because it's Kiwoom, Hanwha, Nongshim, Gen.G, and then T1 DNS. Like literally at the beginning of the year, like at the week 3, week 4, we were like, oh shit, we can pick KT every time here until they play Hanwha. And then they lost to Hanwha, and now the wheels are coming off, and they're back to being the bar team, maybe 4th, right? 4th, maybe 3rd, but probably 4th. And it's just, that's frustrating for me because really what you want to see as a fan of a team is some consistency. And for KT, the consistency was, we are the best and we're going to tussle with the best. We're going to beat the best. And now it's like, well, we're kind of also losing to B&K and Bro. So Um, yeah, we'll see what happens here with KT. Let's go to their opponent at the beginning of the week here in DPlus Kia, because DPlus, they have not made changes. They were off of a loss last week against Gen G, where they went 2-1 on the Saturday showdown, and it was kind of a boring Saturday showdown. It was more of a thinking's man LCK last week on Saturday. They'd beaten BNK Fearex. They got over the hump there. But then they lose to KT, and then they, in a pretty listless fashion, CV Max gets trolled by aiming with the paper rip. If you didn't see it, aiming, I don't know where he got this. He had a piece of paper with CV Max's name on it, and his
I'm
celebration where he
guessing he
takes it,
made it
tears it.
himself. I mean, I'm pretty sure he just took that page out of a notebook somewhere and just made it himself and ripped it. I
No,
guess.
but like, did he have it on him? Like, during the game, did someone in the back give it to? It was just the fact that he just had it was kind of was pretty funny, and then he tears it while he's looking across with this crazy laugh, and you can imagine that probably tilted the shit out of Stevie Max,
Yeah, no,
man.
that's the thing. I mean, I think I said I don't know if I said this on air or not. I think I did say it on air about how like CV Max is probably the most mad person on the planet because of how D Plus played the end of those games. Like they played it so
Yep.
badly, and it's definitely like the kind of thing that would make CV Max very upset because his team is like literally just doing everything wrong in those winning situations, and he has no part in that. Like it's the one thing he can't affect, right? It's like the thing that, like, if aiming is actually like, see, they lost because of CV Max, I would like I would lose my mind because it's like this. So you guys think CV Max was like, okay, when you guys get ahead, what I need you to do is just push into their jungle repeatedly, never start Baron, never look for a turn, and like fight unfavorably. Like CV Max is probably like, oh my god, like this is the one thing I have no power over, and then like aiming wins, and he's like, CV Max is bad, and that's why they lost. Like if I were CV Max, I would be tilted off the planet, and CV Max is like gotta be super annoyed. I think there's more at play than like aiming actually thinking that CV Max was the reason why they lost that series 2-0, but he clearly wanted to make a statement, and he did. And interestingly enough, it was not. It's the kind of thing CV Max is not. I think CV Max's controversies in the past are a little bit like more like 50-50 and like he's officially cleared kind of thing in Korea. People are kind of past that. So I think the West reacted to this a little bit more viscerally. And then Korea just thought it was very funny. Like thought it was very like much just like a playful thing. Whereas in the West, everyone's like, any knowers? Like aiming's a knower. And like it was like super intense. It's like, well, he's actually having fun. I don't think this is like aiming trying to make a overarching
Make a
statement about
thing.
like what
Yeah.
happened with CV Max 7 years ago or something, something like that. Like I don't think that's actually what's going on.
No, no, no. Well, I think with CV Max here, and the rest of D plus Kia, CV Max wasn't the only one that had a tough week. In terms of gameplay, I think it was just a clearly mistake, but filled with it, a week for Smash. A Smash had the big blast cone oopsie, and I feel like I just want to remember this moment because they were up at that point, I think 6,000 gold against KT 26 minutes in. They had Baron, they were pushing on in. They like stopped the Baron push because people got a little too aggressive. All of a sudden, the game gets close. We're stacking Drakes, and there was a blast cone by the Drake pit. Smash, pretty fed on Caitlyn, accidentally I think it's accidentally, takes the blast cone to go over the blue buff rock wall into the Drake pit, or like in front of the Drake pit, and all of KT is there. And he immediately flashes out, but their cuz is on the big dog Neferi. It's too late, and basically the game falls apart 36 minutes in. And it's just tough because it's clearly a mistake. It's clearly not what's intended. You clearly don't want to be flanking on a Caitlyn when you have Skarner in front for you. You have Jace there to double the poke, and it just ends. And he also had a pretty tough series at the end of the week against T1 on the Lucian, bro. It was brutal for Smash because he was trying to play on the edge, but just was making big mistakes, like big miscalculations. I guess the Blascone one is a mistake, but the Lucian one was miscalculations all the time. I'm like, I need to be forward here because I don't think I'll die. And nope, he definitely died again.
Yeah, it was a good series from T1 as well, into DPlus. Like they had good drafts. I like when Faker's on TF right now because he's not looking mechanically sound at the moment. Like sometimes he has his moments. Like don't get me wrong. Like sometimes even Faker will have like the worst landing phase that I can remember in like the last 3 months, and then he'll have a pop off moment in that same game down gold, and you're like, okay, well, he obviously still has hands. It's just like what's going on with the lane. But when I see him on TF right now, I'm like, okay, he will never mess that up, right? Like that's a brain champion, and Faker has the biggest brain of anyone in League of Legends. So like he knows where to be. The punish plays, by the way, through Doran were insane, where Faker's like TPing and then destinying forward and catching them, and the Yorick stuff was really, really cool. I think T1 were just like 2 miles ahead of D plus in terms of macro reads, and like the draft allowed for that. But it was really cool to watch. D plus just needed to figure out how to move on the map, which is that was just the issue for both of their games. Like they could not figure out how to move on the map from ahead or behind. They were making the wrong calls.
Just going back to DPlus Kia, it feels like we're going last year's DPlus Kia, where it's like Showmaker trying to drag the young kids across the line as they're starting to have cracks in their play, and then their macros starting to drop as well. As you mentioned in the T1 series, it was Lucid and Shiwu fallen behind in a 1v2 against Doran, despite the fact that they had spent so many resources on the bot side of the map, getting Smash and Career ahead against Pays and Keria. And we're successful in those bot lane plays. A lot of the gold that made the game even was based off the TF in the mid lane, and that Yorick. But as Reckless, who came to visit us on the space, which was pretty cool to meet Martin, as said, it was like, okay, if this Yorick gets out of control, you got to send more than 2 guys to fix it. And they never did. And then D plus fell too far behind against T1. So I feel like CV Max has his work cut out for him. I think it's a confidence week next week for Smash, who just needs to have a good mid to late game because his laning was good, but just making some oopsies where they throw everything that they built up together is important here for D plus.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for CV Max, it's a super frustrating week because your players did like a lot of you made all the wrong calls in winnable moments. But I think in some senses, if you trust your coaching, if you're CV Max, which you have to, and I think probably CV Max might trust his coaching more than almost any coach, you at least have a lot of footage to be like, remember this moment, remember this moment, remember this moment. Like let's make improvements here. Like these are very fixable things. Like sometimes with coaching teams, it's like individual players have issues. Like you need to work on your champion pool. I want you to grind 50 games of this or whatever and work on it because you clearly don't have mastery of a champion. That's like quite simple. Um, to be able to tell somebody like you're bad at this. Or if a team has bad synergy around a certain type of objective fight or like the engages and one, it's very simple to be like, listen to Showmaker's calls. He is making the calls. Like that, making a statement like that is usually pretty easy for players to follow if it's that simple, right? Like, too many people are talking. It's like you need to not be talking when Showmaker is talking. Something like that, right? That kind of thing is a little bit more simple. If you're just making some macro calls that are bad, like if you're making the DNS or DNF macro calls that are bad sometimes, that's a part where it's like, okay, you guys all need to think about the game differently, and you have shot calling problems, and like you're bad at like your champion pool is tiny, and like Berserker needs more resources. Like it's really easy for Steve Max to I think in this game, the game against KT, be like, remember this moment, you need to start Baron here and have vision here. It's and like I think the players will all be like, oh right, I
Yeah.
think we tunneled a little bit there. This is fixable. Like I think D plus was in a position where if CUMax just sits them down with footage and says, "Look, work on this," it will click. I don't think anyone's going to be like, "No, actually, I think we did the right thing to fight in the jungle," or like, I don't think there's going to be like disagreements in the team. I think everyone will be like, "Yeah." In fact, they probably kind of already know. I don't know if
Yeah.
CUMax has to show them, but he can show them, and I think it'll be pretty easy to bounce back.
Yeah, we're not going infrastructurally changing everything. It's more of like, hey, do better. It's just regular VOD review. But that is what we think. Who knows what's going on inside that brain of CV Max and Showmaker, who's just seen it all, including finally beating Gen G. Remember that happened this year. So yeah, we'll see what happens here with D plus. It's time for some good news, Wolf. It's time for some good news. I've been waiting for this. It feels like a while. It is Hanjin Brion delivering the longest winning streak in the history of Brion. Maybe not in the organizational line because Hanjin Brion does carry on the legacy of Najin, EM Fire, Najin White Sword, Najin Black Shield. Uh, but they've tied the longest win streak in the history of this organization's tenure and the longest since they've been Brion with 8 games in a row, beating this week basically their playoff opposition in BNK Fearex and in Diable. They said, I don't care what 80 carry that you have, we'll pound you. And they did. And everyone had good moments, but Gideon has been playing so well for the squad, as well as carrying on from last week, casting that this mid top that a lot of people underrated, except you. You've been on the Gideon hype train since the beginning, even more so than me. But casting has showed up in a huge way. And and then of course you've got Teddy down there playing well. But I think those are the two guys that have been under appreciated for their gameplay. Because we could say Romer's come in and fixed a lot of the chemistry issues, or at least he's there in the fights compared to Loki, who was like, I'll TP, doing the Kingin and the Scout in the team fights where he's like, looks like that's a bad fight. I'm not going to TP. Romer's there. He's part of the setup for the team fight. And then maybe he looks stupid like in the fight, but he's there, and that extra little body is more than enough time and space for Teddy to get stuff done. And then it's been a Teddy team, but I just wanted to give the shout outs there to them. And Namgung, he's that good, he's that bad. I think he's gotten actually a little bit too much praise because some of the play that he's done has been bad, but also he's had some highs.
There's been some moments, but like I feel like when I look at the way that Bro is playing right now, the thing that sticks out to me, like the one moment I think about more than anything else is like Romer dancing after the win. And I just look at the team and go, they're no longer like, we are the punching bag. Let's try to figure it out. Like, what, can we get our backs off the wall? Like, are we going to be just the meme team? Because in Korea, Bro is kind of like the meme team, right? Like, when Bro lose, everyone's like, well, that was funny. Like, that's kind of the reaction. There aren't that many Bro fans. That's why you see so many Western fans in the audience, because it's a good day to get tickets. Like, that's kind of become the thing.
Wait. On that note, against BNK Fearex, it was Bro against BNK Fearex. It was the most foreigners fans I've ever seen at LCK. It was like really cool. I felt like there were more foreigners inside the arena than there were Korean fans. I just remember panning and I was like, this is nuts. But also makes sense because those are the Bro is the global team, and BNK Fearex had the recent rebrand from Fearex by BNK. Plus, they made it to the international event. Plus, they had Diable. But now you've got the feel good story of Taeyun. Like, it just that was really cool. All right, continue on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I mean, for a lot of foreigners coming to Korea, going to LCK or any esport event, but like LCK is the major esport in Korea right now. It's the most popular. It's the most watched overseas, which is probably a shock to no one. Me saying that, I think everybody knows that, right? But like in the past, the GSL, for example, was not the biggest esport event in Korea at all. Period. Like not even close. But it was the most watched outside of Korea. And so like people, like you would watch GSL games where the crowd is like 80% foreigners because it just wasn't popular in Korea that much. But a lot of people overseas knew Tasteless and Artosis and me and everybody else who was commentating the league and would come and take pictures with us and stuff. And that's like their like kind of tourism thing they're doing. The same way, like if you go to Japan, if you're kind of a gamer, you might go to Akihabara and like look at some retro games there or something like that. Like this is kind of like the thing for Korea is like, okay, I'm going to stop by the LCK arena and check it out, even if there's no games going on. People go because there's like stuff you can see there. There's kind of like a little, I want to say Hall of Fame-esque type of walkthrough you can go to there. You can see the cafe that's there that everybody sits at. There's players and stuff all over the walls. And there are things to see. But my point is like, if you're just like kind of like, I will go check it out kind of like as a tourist, it's hard to get tickets on most days. But on Bro days, it's a little bit easier. So they've, not only do they have like the meme name, like their Bro, literally, which is like a thing that's funny to Westerners. Like everything is kind of lined up for them to be super popular overseas. But to watch Romer, to go back to kind of the original point, dance right in front of the crowd, and to be in a position where they are comfortable and like kind of, I want to say like almost basking in the moment for a second, because it's finally like we're on a streak, we're actually relevant, we're actually good. Like we're actually good. We're legitimately good. Not like the fluke, like not the trap game good, not the I beat Genji randomly that one time good, and like everyone's gonna be, going out to dinner afterwards being like, good job today, guys, but like I think we got kind of lucky, like it's like no, we're legitimately good. We're actually winning. We're playing well. We're coordinating. Like we're actually beating good teams with this roster that is punching way above its weight. Like punching way above its weight. It's got to feel good, and you could see with how they're interacting with each other and how they're on the stage and how they're playing in game that like this roster just isn't they're out like the rain cloud in like a cartoon where someone's depressed and like they're always the cloud is gone. It's like I'm living my life. I'm a real pro gamer now. Like it feels like that's what I see when I see this team. And like
Yeah.
how can you not love this team? How can you not cheer for this team? How can you not appreciate like all the struggles have kind of come to an end and they're actually good? Are they going to win MSI? Like I keep joking they're going to win worlds and stuff. Like are they actually going to be a legend team? Not mathematically eliminated, but probably not. But
Probably
like
not.
maybe they could be, and we can entertain the thought. But like from going from ninth, 10th, perma losing meme team status to like, wait a second, these guys are actually good. It's
Yeah.
just it's a really cool rise, and like one that we wish we could see from DNS right now. That we kind of saw from QM a little bit on their home front, right? Where you're just a moment, but like that's the meme game. That's the we randomly won a game situation that they're trying to get out of, like that Bro has gotten out of now. Bro's like, okay, we're a legit contender. Like teams actually have to prep for us. Like we're actually good.
Yeah, they the big thing that the Bros have done since adding Loki, and it feels weird to just give the credit. I mean, since adding Romer, it feels weird to give Romer the credit for this. Is when there's a fight that they don't want to take, they just don't take it. Like it's usually like, okay, Drake 3. We've stacked Drake's 1 and 2. We don't have to take this fight on the third Drake when we're not quite in position. But also, look at this tower that's up there. And also, we don't see where BNK Thorax is on the map. They're probably at the Drake, all 5 of them, because they're panicking. They're on the back foot. Guess what? We just won't take the Drake. That's okay. They did that against BNK Thorax in game 1. They stacked the first 2 Drakes. And then they're like, all right, we'll just take top tower and 4 out of the 5 tower plates in top tower as well, and that's a lot of gold. We'll continue to move our gold lead forward. It's that kind of control that they've had in these shot calling moments that has been so refreshing and so like proud to see as a fan. Because before I remember Wadid and I'm not sure if you're on the desk that day, we did the breakdown of, okay, Loki is split pushing top side of the map. They have no business being in Drake despite the fact that they have the Drakes. Just give the Drake. And then Loki TP'd in on a flank, and it just didn't work out. Like, regardless, they could have played the fight better for sure, but it didn't work out. And it was against Genji. Yeah, now I remember. It was Bro against Genji. They tried to TP flank there. It got busted, and then they never got a footing back into the game. And here they're like, we're gonna play the map. If you want to look for someone to be happy for here, just watch any coach cam reaction. Go to the end of the series where they do like the reel of the match, and you could see how much it means to Coach Song and Coach Duke. They're clapping with ecstatic, like they're newborn babies that just figured out what their hands do. Like it's that level of just despair and futility that you feel when you lose, and they were losing so much that the ecstatic nature of winning, euphoric nature of winning comes on through. It feels really good. So for the Bros, as a Bro fan, as someone who's known Coach Song back in his old NA days, back in TSM, it feels good to see him finding success after failing over at DRX and not having success over with DPlus. Uh, and then looking at this roster where we're like, guys, this looks like a 10th place roster. Namgung, that's who you got with Teddy. Like, shit. So great job by the Bros for finding
Yeah.
success. It is a strength of schedule thing. Like, no one's denying that. But they did beat their playoff opponents. And then next week, it's a little, if you are the bros and want consistency in the way that you wish you had consistency out of KT, DNS and Kiwoom DRX, they are the favorites going into this one. But then they finish up against DPlus, T1, Genji, and Hanoi. So you win these last 2 games that you're supposed to win, and maybe you pluck a game. Even if you finish 0-4, there's a strong chance you're a playoff team. And if you beat DPlus, you are a Legend Group team. Like it is in their control now to get the job done.
I mean, I looked up some stats because I was trying to quantify like what's going on with Roamer, because there's been so many games where Roamer is like 0-3 and is like not having the greatest team fight, or is like baiting excuse me, the enemy team in. And I was just looking at stats where you were, talking about the coaching stuff and the happiness of the song. He has the lowest amount out of any mid laner of counter picks. He has 70% of the time his pick is blind in the draft. And so if you look at some of his laning stats, they're actually quite impressive considering that. They're actually relatively even. He also has, just next to, just above Zeka, 1% higher than Zeka, the highest win rate of any mid laner, because obviously he's played fewer games, and a lot of that's been on the streak, but he has 80% win rate. He's doing really well, even though he looks like in some of the games like he's having a horrible time. He has a large share of his team's deaths, just second to Faker, actually, in terms of percentage of deaths. Faker has a little bit higher deaths than he does, but like he's up there, as well. Daystar is in the conversation, I think, as well, but he's inactive, so it is what it is. But he is, I think, doing a lot with very little, where they've been giving casting a lot more resources in draft since he's rejoined, and it feels like it's just working. Like the bros have figured something out. I want to see this continue, and I know I've hammed it up on the broadcast a lot, and I've kind of made it into like a little mini meme and stuff, but legitimately, I want bro to be good. And there were times in the past, I've commentated this team since 2021, where like they upset DPlus when DPlus was the best team, and there were flashes of moments, right? Like we've talked about all the time. Bro can always randomly beat somebody. They had that playoff chance where they beat DPlus to get into playoffs, and then played against DPlus in playoffs, and we were like, man, maybe they could go to the next round of playoffs because they beat DPlus to get here. Maybe they'll beat them again in the best of, and then they just like got bopped by DPlus. But this is like, I'll say it for one more time, like they actually are winning consistently. They're playing well every day. So you're like, wait a minute, like where does the train stop? Like how high do we go? So I want to see how high they go, and I'm hoping that it's higher than usual. Hoping.
KT levels of what is it? Craziness. It's exciting, but also scary at the same time. And then what's waiting for you in weeks 8 and 9. I already said it. That's the tough strength of schedule. All right. After the bros, one of their opponents made some news, and we teased it at the top. Lehends is benched. Benched. He did it Nongshim did it in a very concealed manner. They did not make a tweet, and we waited till the rosters were public, and we showed it on the broadcast. I think was the first time people found out. They filled in the starters sheet, and that was it. That was how we knew. And then we showed on the broadcast, look, it's Pled at the support role. We'll see what happens. Bye. I think pretty sure that's where most people found out that Lehends wasn't starting. A lot of the time, Kenzie, who's one of the reporters out here, will tweet the starters sheet when they're allowed to do that, as one of the media members to the West, one of the few Korean media members who uses Twitter like that. But he was in Vietnam for the Road Show, so no one tweeted that out until afterwards. And yeah, fans were mad. It was just
a fan
confusing.
sign of where is Lehends, and I feel like that was like that summed up the whole like sentiment. Like it was I don't know, that sign is so that's so unusual to see in Korea, a sign like that, especially it's like written in English, but like it almost felt like it was like the beginning of a documentary where we're gonna find out like in 2 years time people still don't know where Lehends is. Like it felt like it was like, okay, what's going on? Like this is really weird. And on one hand, like we've talked about this on the show, and like I think it's a pretty heavy sentiment that people have right now based on what has occurred. is like, hey, Lehends is pretty hands-on. You know, he's pretty like, listen to your hyung, do what I say, and like you'll be fine, and we'll get along. And like he's dealt with a lot of young AD carries and has been a huge part of those AD carries' success early on in their career. But Diable seems to be the kind of guy who's like, I do things my way. People don't tell me what to do. I don't take lessons from my support. My support listens to what I say, and I tell my support when to go in. And I tell my mid laner if he doesn't get it together, he's benched, by the way. That's kind of like where it seems like Diable's at right now. So you and I were a little bit worried that there might be a bit of a mismatch here. And then right away, I mean, like right away, he's gone. That was like, wow, that was fast. I thought we were going to play for like a month before this happened. And I'm a little bit disappointed in that we don't know this for sure, by the way. Like, we don't actually know. Lehends could have actually been ill. You know, like, there could be a plethora of reasons why he was not playing that may have even been so personal that Nongshim decided, like, hey, we're not going to discuss this right now. But because it wasn't discussed, and because it was so sudden, and with Diable's recent history and everything that we've discussed, like, it felt like almost maybe Nongshim not saying anything made it seem more likely that like something weird was going on, like, or not something weird was going on, but that something was going on with Diable saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do," and like maybe Nongshim was like, "We really don't want to do this because Lehends is one of our most popular and important players, but we'll do this." Maybe they made some sort of agreement where like, "Yeah, you can do it for one best of three. Let's see how it goes," because they didn't scrim that much with Pleta or whatever, and maybe Diable was like, "I know Pleta. I've seen him play. I want to play with him," and they're like, "All right, we'll let you have that for one best of three. Maybe Lehends will be back next week. We don't know." But it felt weird because of everything that was on everyone's recent minds with Vikla and Daystar, that like it did seem like this is what happened. Someone did tweet a picture of Lehends being actually at Lol Park. I didn't personally see him there. I was not aware that he was there. The picture is like very blurry. I actually have it in front of me right now, but it's a very blurry and dark picture that was clearly taken like very, very zoomed in. And it almost looks like Lehends is like sitting there like this. Like he looks upset in the picture. It's like a very dark like scene. And I think even the picture was tweeted. I can't find it, so I may be wrong on somebody misremembering, but I think the picture was tweeted without like a caption even. It was just like Lehends is here or something, and it like no other context. Like he's here, and there's a picture of him. But the picture itself looked like Lehends was like depressed that he was there but not playing, and it was intense. Again, kind of out of context situation, so we don't know what's going on fully, but I don't think this roster is not winning because of their bottom 2v2. Yes, Lehends was having some rough games. Like, he was trying to fix games and failing. Like, he had some games where he was, you know, for lack of a better term, like kind of running it down. Like that did happen. Like we can't deny that Lehends sometimes, and he always has been this player, by the way, even on his like heyday on Gen G when they went MSI. He's a barrel type. He sometimes he tilts, sometimes he tries to too hard to save the game, kind of like Cuz. The similar type of thing that happened with Cuz with KT we were talking about earlier, where he's like trying to save the game somehow, where he's like, hold on, if I go in here, maybe there's an angle, maybe I can catch the AD carry. If I go here, then we kill him and we can miraculously win this game. But when that doesn't work, you look like an idiot, right? But I personally think, like, as much as we can look at Lehends' like death rate and his solo deaths and like some of the times he's died trying to get vision and be like, this is a problem. I think the bigger problem is the solo laners. I think the bigger problem is the overall shot calling for Nongshim, which I've been saying for weeks. So this decision is baffling to me because I just think like it is not. It's not going to like empower Diable. It's not going to make this team suddenly play through Diable. Diable's individual skill speaks for itself. And we saw it even in the losses, right? Like he was playing really well and trying to outplay and trying to like push the skill ceiling higher and do Diable things, right? But you need to fix the shot calling problem. And if you're pulling pieces out, especially like one of your main shot callers in Lehends, I think it gets worse before it gets better. And I also think, especially considering the timing of this with all of the Diable stuff, it's just, I don't know. It's not a decision I would have made. As a coach, I might have considered it, but I probably would have taken that to the GMs and been like, hey, what are we doing here? Because if I'm the GM, I'm like, not this week, by the way. I'm like, not this week. We can maybe try that. Let's get these guys a little bit more time together and try it next week. But again, maybe there is some like real headbutting going on between these two players that we don't know. That it's like they're like, I don't know, we gotta just do it. We gotta change it because they're fighting. I don't know, but it's very bizarre for us. And from the outside looking in, it doesn't look good. So I hope Nongshim can bounce back. I hope they can figure it out. I love Pleta too. Like Pleta's a great player. I hope he doesn't also have to like deal with all the stress of this as well, because it's just an uncomfortable situation from the outside looking in.
Yeah, I like your point of maybe it was a one-off, and maybe that's why they didn't tweet it, because Nongshim is one of the best social media teams, especially to the West, out there. Like, they're on top of Western memes. They're on top of everything. But this was kind of baffling, and I think it really just showed more of Scout. Like, when Scout has bad games, it's super stinky. And at the beginning of this split, he was turning the corner. We had like that LCK new blood Scout, the new blood here to the LCK, the new guy, and he was playing well. And when he doesn't play well, when he's falling behind, when he's taking some questionable plays, that's the problem. But when you are a um a KDA scoreboard kind of reacting manager, you look at Lehends' past performances: 1-7 and 1-9 against Gen G, 0-0-3 on and 0-10 against Kiwoom. Like 10 deaths is a lot. 0-3, 4-7. Took a lot of the kills against T1. 0-4-0-6 against Gen G. Like, it's like they're playing tough teams, but also it has been a 5-6 game losing streak. You needed to change something, including EWC. So they go with this change. I think you had two legacy players that you could potentially have changed, either in Lehends with Pleta or in Scout with Calyx. Calyx is
Yeah,
still
that was the thing
there.
that people have been clamoring for, and that was the thing that was being discussed. Like when Diable came in this roster, I think you and I were kind of like, we might butt heads with Lehends. I don't know what's going to happen. But we didn't think Lehends was going to be benched like right away. Like that was not like something that we were trying to predict. But a lot of people were like, maybe he's going to send Scout away because he did that to Vikla already, and Calyx is right there, and Calyx is pretty good. So, and also, obviously Diable is more challengers minded because he spent a lot of time in that league and is friends with a lot of those players, and like might be like, I see that Calyx is putting in the work and it looks like maybe Scout isn't. Like he might have some opinion like that. That might have been the opinion he had about Daystar. But we all kind of thought, I mean, not we all, but I think the fans all thought that was more likely to happen than what actually happened, and it hasn't. And it is just strange. It is a strange situation. And I do agree that Bdd has been the one who's been pushing back on this for me a lot more than anybody else. He's like, Lehends is struggling. Well, like let's be honest about it. He's having a rough time, and I think I'm maybe a little bit. I don't want to say I'm biased, but I really like Lehends. I like his play style, and I do think that he's the kind of player who will look bad when the team looks bad because he's always the guy who tries to fix it. And like Lehends' KDAs to me, I see as a symptom of Nongshim's issues rather than Lehends is the problem. But that's kind of my take, and maybe Diable sees it differently. Diable doesn't like how Lehends is laning, doesn't like what Lehends is, like how much Lehends is roaming, how many resources he's getting, which is lower, by the way. Lehends likes to roam a lot. We know this about him. But I want Nongshim to be able to fix their bigger issues. And when we've seen this with so many teams where you keep moving the parts around, you never fix the core issue. And then people don't even I feel like fans sometimes don't even see what the core issue was because they're so fixated on the drama and where is Lehends and what's going on. And that's why, like I said, if I were the GM, I would have been like, Diable, I hear you, but let's play like 2 more matches. Like, let's play 2 more best of 3s. Like, let's do 1 more week of regular play and like assess further. Like, that's what I would have done if I were managing the team outside of the coaching staff, based on what, like, assuming I have the same information right now that like the GM had, like I would make that decision. There's obviously more information. They have a lot more knowledge, but
Sure.
It's just surprising to see this decision being made right now. And it doesn't sit well, I think, with me and with a lot of people, but we'll see what happens. Maybe this was not a great start, but maybe this is the turning point and Pleta rockets back to Ox's top 3 list. And Nongshim become relevant again. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
it
predict
just
that.
my only pushback is the GM is still making this decision. I don't think you're sitting there. You're telling Diable your decision, and you're making it feel like it's Diable's decision. I don't think Diable joining this roster, then all of a sudden you're like, Diable, what do you think? Especially when you have King and Scout and Lehends on this team. I think this was a decision that was coming. It was brewing, and you have convinced me earlier on accident that this is probably a temporary thing because there was no message put out on Twitter anywhere. I just went to go check now. Was there a statement? No, there was no statement. It was about Lolly Night. If they win, they go on Lolly Night. Please understand that to our fans. But that's not a statement about who their starting roster is and why they did
Sure.
that and all that stuff. So
I mean, obviously, like, one more thing on this. Like, I think
yeah.
one thing we didn't touch on is the cost of all of this. Like, from a GM perspective and a coaching perspective, you spent the money and
Yep.
you did the all in on the trade. Like, you did do that. Like, you made this aggressive choice, and then to, like, for example, if you are the person who, because we don't know if money was paid, but I think most people assume that was the case in terms of the trade. That was more than just like you get Teo and we get Diable. There was probably some other stuff that came along with that. Again, that's assumptions we're making, but so much is on this decision. You got rid of one of your players that was pretty unexpected. Like, it's a hard. They did a hard thing. They spent a lot of resources, whether it's financial or otherwise, to get this guy on the team. And then if he's like, I don't know, Lehends is running it down. I don't like this. You are kind of somewhat like inclined to go with like your decision you've already made. Like, we already decided we're getting this guy. So like let's all in on that and not like push back on him right away because he might become uncomfortable. So again, there's a lot of things happening. I just I hope that Lehends is back next week, or there's like some more information given, or it just feels like we're left in limbo and it's uncomfortable.
It's time to remind you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Now, the regular season is wrapped and the NBA playoffs are fully underway, and there's no better way to cash in on the high-flying hoops action than Prize Picks, a preferred partner of the NBA. Every bucket, every dime, and every win means more when you're playing on Prize Picks, so don't pass up your next shot with Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. They've also got the Do It Live 2026 NBA Finals sweepstakes underway, where you can pick live squares during the NBA playoffs and you could win a trip for two to the NBA Finals. To enter, just make a $5 lineup with at least one live NBA player pick during any part of the 2026 NBA playoffs. Live player picks are picks made after a game is already in progress, and it's super easy. Download the app, boom, you're ready to go. Then you just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports, anything from NBA, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more. And you can get in on the action across all 50 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. So download the Prize Pick app today. Use code LCK to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LCK to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, a preferred partner of the NBA. So, there was a road show, Vietnam. We did talk about Kiwoom DRX just a bit there. But Kiwoom DRX, Hanwha, Gen G, 3 teams went to Hanoi for TV 360. It was not that competitive. It was very showy, I would say. These matches were very big boom bombastic in terms of losses for QM DRX and wins for Gen G and Hanwha Life Esports, even though Hanwha Life did drop a game. That game was just a fist fight. But what did you make of this road show? DRX being the one hosting it. And then also, it kind of just felt like it was a home crowd for Hanwha because Hanwha has spent 3 years visiting Vietnam before QM DRX. They're like, actually, we're gonna have it in Vietnam with our Vietnamese home fans, which that because of Lazy Feel, who just popped up on people's radars last year.
They did a lot of really cool stuff at the home front that wasn't shown. Like Umpty was there. Umpty was there doing stuff. They had Morgan on call because you guys know Morgan is super famous in Vietnam. I saw some clips of like Morgan getting involved and doing stuff. I think he was not physically there, but he was like calling in and going on the big screen and doing stuff. I saw like a video of Smeb singing Noribong there, basically doing karaoke on the stage. There was a lot of stuff going on that was happening to like I think really celebrate overall League of Legends and LCK to Vietnam. Like instead of like it being just about QMDRX, which was cool. And like you said, we were watching the game, in Lol Park where it wasn't actually physically occurring, and we were being pretty honest with ourselves and being like, Hanwha are the crowd favorites in this game. Like it is not QMDRX at their own home front. It's actually Hanwha who's getting all the cheers, and like Gumayushi obviously being a huge factor in this, like very popular in Vietnam. He also wore I can't remember the name of the traditional hat, but he was wearing it on his walk in and walk out. So he was hamming it up a little bit. He had a great series. Guma's kind of on fire right now, but there were some good parts and bad parts of this home front. Like I feel like the way the crowd was organized in the first day and the camera shots we had were really rough, and it made it look like not that nobody came, but like it looked bad. Like the VIP section was so large, and then the VIPs were obviously watching elsewhere. Like maybe they were watching on TVs, because that's by the way, often VIPs at esports events don't want to be around the normal people, like because they're important people and they have important things to do, and they're making phone calls and doing other stuff. Like, and also they are often like quite famous themselves and like want to watch the game and enjoy it in a private room with a TV rather than like every 5 minutes someone's asking them to sign something or do whatever. So like when you have a VIP section that's that big, if their VIPs aren't showing up, like you gotta like be like, hey, can you guys move forward? Like that's a kind of thing that is really commonly seen in esports. And in day 2, they shrank the VIP section and made it much smaller, and it didn't leave like a huge empty section of seats. Like I think the turnaround from day 1 to day 2 in terms of some of the production issues we had was quite quick. Like they fixed a lot of problems. They fixed the walkouts. The walkouts were way better. The like fan high fives, it felt a lot more set up and proper, and like there was like a big weird like delay and situation on the first day where the fans were trying to greet the players as they were walking out, but they like filmed that when the players were like going to set up their keyboards instead of like after everything was set up. So it was kind of intense. Like everyone's like carrying all their stuff, but also having to like try to high five people. It felt like day 2 was much, much better organized, and there was a lot of learning that happened there. But I thought the crowd was very awesome. Like they were very excited, even when QMDRX was losing. I think they were hyped about it. It's a reminder, just like for me when we went to Hong Kong, that a lot of our Southeast Asian fans are just fans of the LCK. I know obviously this is a team that has a Vietnamese player on it, and DRX has been really active on Vietnamese social media. Like they have their own Vietnamese Facebook page where they post updates in Vietnamese. Like they're really trying to reach out to this audience, and they have a special relationship that I think a lot of other teams don't have. But I think a lot of the time it is just that like Vietnamese League of Legends fans are LCK fans. They like the best teams. They like the popular players just like everyone else. And LazyField is popular in Vietnam, 100%. Like he's the first non-Korean player to ever play in the LCK. He's very good. He's very talented. He's still very young. Like there's a lot of great things going for him. But I think the same way that your average League of Legends fans gravitates towards T1, gravitates towards Faker, gravitates towards Gumayushi, Zeka, Chovy. Your average Vietnamese fan is like, I like that he's from where we're from, but I love Chovy. I'm super into these Hanwha players. I've been watching Guma since his debut. So I think it was cool to see that even though it's Kiwoom's thing, it was also like everyone cheered for Hanwha bopping them as well. Like that was cool. Yeah. And to me, I know like a lot of people might think of it as going like, wow, I guess this bombed for DRX because everyone screamed and clapped loudly when they got blasted. I just think that there's more at play here. Like for the home front, it's supposed to be about QMDRX, but for Vietnam, it's about I'm just happy this is in my space now. It's in Hanoi. Yeah. I get to actually have the chance to high five Carrier, or not Carrier, and Chovy, whatever, whoever's walking out. Like I get to high five Guma, maybe, like that's. We saw some of the reactions. You and I were watching.
Oh,
you get the high five,
God.
and like the girl was like actually shaking. You know,
It was
that's a once in a
crazy.
lifetime chance. Like you're not gonna have that chance again, maybe in your whole life. You have to travel to Korea for that, and then even then, like getting tickets for LCK is so hard. Like that's a life changing like life memory for some of these fans that got to do those high fives. So I thought it
Yeah,
was cool. I'm happy that we're doing more of this.
I think I didn't really think of it until you brought it up because you were like, I'm a fan of Lazy Feel. He's from where I'm from, but also Chovy. It 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 just it just reminds me of kind of like this, and this is a small angle here, Wolf, but a like when I see Asian American actors make it in Hollywood, or Asian representation in Hollywood, it's not about the fact that like, oh, they made the movie, or not every Asian movie is going to be like Crazy Rich Asians where like it's everyone's Asian, but more of like you see yourself represented on that stage at the highest level, and to see like Lazy Feel up there, you're tapping into one of the largest player bases in League of Legends, being like, oh shit, I could do that, right? You are kind of exciting this next generation of player who sees themselves at the highest level. And although Lazy Feel has had a couple of rough series lately, it doesn't take away from the fact that he made it. He made it. He's up there. He's the one tussling against Chovy. He's the one going up against Gumayushi. And you could be that too. And although that likelihood is tiny, it's very, very unlikely. Uh, it happened, and it gives you that little bit of motivation to be crazy enough to become a pro in the first place, to try and aspire for something like that. And so I think that impact I didn't even recognize until you kind of touched around it. So I wanted to hammer that one home. On top of the fact that the reason why we're saying the production side of things here for this roadshow is because LCK is a global league, and it does require partners that can prove they can hold this level of event. In Hong Kong, was it perfect? Was it as good as LCK's production, or when LCK does like a Korea roadshows? No. But did they show improvement from day one to day two? Yes. And I think that improvement by the Vietnamese company TV360 showed was even more clear than in Hong Kong, like from day one to day two. Maybe because day one wasn't as good as Hong Kong's day one, but
There was
the
also like
improvement was very
there's a
clear.
gap day, right? Like TV360 had a whole day to like
That
figure it
too.
out where they weren't actually live. I want to talk briefly about, because we don't have that much time left, about the games themselves that happened on Sunday between QMDRX and Hanwha, because they were super bizarre. And the
Ugh.
Genji series was like, it could have been an email, whatever. Like, we don't have to talk about that too much. But I will share like a small anecdote of what happened on the Genji day. I saw one of the producers, and it's when I was walking by, he was watching, I think, game two and the blowout that was happening there, and he was just like, who was watching, he was like, "Don't Genji know how to read the room?" Like, kind of said something along those lines, because it's kind of like, man, like, they're doing them kind of dirty here. This is kind of ruining the whole vibe. It's supposed to be like, oh, this could be competitive. We all knew it wasn't going to be, and it kind of felt like in game one, Hanwha was they were reading the room. They were like, well, let's make this a little interesting. The gameplay we saw from Hanwha in game one was so rickety. It was so like they were not locked in. It felt like everyone was still half asleep. Like the gameplay was really quite bad, and it was hype though, because it was like, oh, Lazyfield's having a good game. Like he's ahead. He's kind of popping off. Like maybe the upset's gonna happen. Maybe it's the crowd energy. A lot of people are trying to push the crowd narrative, even though if you really go back and really look at it objectively, like we have already discussed, like Hanwha almost again, we're definitely the like the fan favorites in the crowd. And every time Hanwha made a play, the crowd was erupting. Um, but my point is, like, even though they won game one, Hanwha Life Esports were like, okay, we'll lock in now. After that, and they in game two were given a draft where they got Ari, Rumble, Vi, and then in the second phase later, Ash Seraphine. Because QMDRX went for the early Anivia pick as a response to the Rumble first pick, and it just all fell apart from there. And then game three, Lazyfield was able to get his hands on the Varus, which was crazy. and UCal popped off on the Aurora, but they just couldn't get it done. And Hanwha, I think, in this series showcased some of the stuff that we saw in the early season, where we are like, okay, a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too unplanned. Some of the moves they were making, some of the snap calls were like a little bit too snap called, and there were certainly issues there. But I also think this is just kind of like a one-off weird road show. We didn't play our best game, but we're still definitely better than them, and we locked in and we won situation. I don't think this is going to be like a game where we look back at, Hanwha did kind of look a little weak against QMDRX, so maybe they'll lose to KT, situation. I don't think that's how I'm going to read into this. But it was kind of, it felt like a bit of a buzz kill and kind of like a bait and switch. The fact that like they played badly in game one and gave you the hope that like maybe the series could actually be QM's, and then they're like, oh, just kidding, we were messing around. You guys have no chance. It was a series that like was very uncomfortable for I think true QM fans to watch, because I think they were also knowers of like, yeah, like game one was kind of a freebie, but we couldn't get it done in the next two. They looked better for sure. Like QM do look like they're making some big strides to be better, but like they're still in that zone we were talking about Bro used to be in, where it's like, oh, we got the fluke win over Hanwha, yes, but like there's no real consistency. There's no like proof that this team is going to get out of the hole, sadly, from this series, at least not from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, it does feel like it was showmanship and just a class diff here by the two squads invited by Kiwoom DRX. And Kiwoom DRX, they have an opportunity here against the Bros, right? I do think if you're Kiwoom, you're like, that's the game we want to watch. And Bros are like, this is a game maybe now with some pressure where they could start playing a little tight. However, it doesn't get easier for Kiwoom DRX moving forward. All right, let's go to predictions. Predictions time for week number 7 here, Wolf. Man, we had a couple weeks that were a little tough, and now we're almost there. We're in the final turn. Maybe not the final turn, but we're rounding the turn. We're rounding the turn.
We are getting closer. Yeah, I mean it's just 3 weeks left, so we're in the final third of the regular season for pre-Road to MSI. For round 2, we're getting into the weeds of it. Looking at this week, I think there are some good games here for sure. Like T1 Genji, first of all, on Saturday, which is really hype. Let's go through these, because like a lot of these are going to be, I don't want to say controversial predictions, but ones that like you're going to be like, I picked this, but I'm really not sure. Let's say like I think you're going to be picking based on your feelings, because we don't know what people performance is going to be like on the day. It could be that close. I think for day one,
T1
a little bit less so. Yeah, T1 DPlus. Like a little bit less so. Like I don't know if Lehends is going to be playing or not, but I don't think
T1
it matters.
Nongshim DNS D+. We're going T1 D+. Sorry,
T1
DNS.
over Nongshim, D+ over DNS. And then Genji BNK is kind of interesting. Like this is one of the ones where you could go BNK if you wanted to kind of be a little bit of a hipster and be like, yeah, no, I think Taeyeon's looking really good. I think Genji have some problems.
I think
they're not
Raptor
perfect.
can exploit Canyon. Like that is a true fact, but not right now.
I'm not going to predict it, but I think if you predicted it and backed it up and then gloated afterwards, I would give you credit. Like if, because Oxus had some wild curveballs. Like if he was like, no, I see the angle here, and he was right, I'd be like, yeah, no, I mean, I can't even fault you. Like I think it's actually, there's some angles there. I'm not going to think it's going to happen personally, but QMDRX versus KT, a little bit of an upswing for QMDRX, a little bit of a bumpy laning phase for my man BDD last week, but I still think KT are they're going to be able to outclass. I mean, with what they did against D+ with a deficit, it would double do that against QMDRX in my mind. So I'm going to go Genji KT.
Yep, same thing. Genji KT, the BNK pick though. That's one I'll think about. Next up on Friday, it's Hanwha Life Esports versus D+, Bro versus DNS.
That's a Hanwha Life and Bro for me. I think you could see a world where D+ were able to get a win over Hanwha, maybe even take a game there. But I think that there's a lot of problems with D+'s mid and late game shot calling, and that's from ahead, as we saw, and I think from behind, where they will likely be, it's just probably not going to be a win for me. I think, by the way, one thing we didn't touch on, and I want to touch on very briefly, is Zayas is having a weird, rough time in the laning phase right now. Like, he's actually losing to players like Dudu on the
Yep.
consistent.
It's
It's
been
like
like a week and a
like
half now.
Rich was like making him look like he was better than him a little bit. So I think that's the angle if you're a D plus fan, is like hopefully Shiu gets it done, but I'm not going to predict that. I think DNS is in free fall. Like, they're not even LCK level right now, so the Bro win with what Bro is looking like right now should also be pretty free.
Yeah. Then we get to the coolest Saturday ever. It's Gen G versus T1, and then BNK Furex versus Nongshim. The two yellowish teams against the two red teams that have had the trade here in Nongshim and BNK Furex. Let's go with Saturday Showdown. Who you got, Gen G or T1?
I think I've got T1. I think that the way that they play their last few games, they look better. I think Doran is coming to his own again. Like, Doran's form is always fluctuating, but he looked really good. And Faker, he's still having a rough time. Like, I don't think Faker is gonna be enjoying his time against Chovy at all in this matchup specifically. I think Chovy is going to run him over. But I think Faker is drafting like he's aware that his current form is not peaked at the moment. Like, we're far from that. And so with his struggles, I think they know how to play around that and play through pace, play through Doran when appropriate. And I just think Canyon is still a big liability, and it almost feels like Ruler and Duro are having some form fluctuation right now as well. So feels like Keen is the guy for Gen G right now that you can trust. And with Doran also being the strong member that he is right now for T1, I don't think Keen wins hard enough to make me predict Gen G. So I'm gonna go T1 here.
Yeah, remember we did the do you or don't you believe this team will make it to Road or make it to MSI? It was T1 or Gen G, and I picked T1, and this is the match that they got to win to prove it. I guess the match that they got to win to prove it is actually at Road to MSI, but this is a good indicator right now.
Sure,
Give me
this will be the
T1.
best indicator we get before that.
Yep,
So
yep. And then B&K versus Nongshim. Are you Diable roster pilled or are you Taeyun roster pilled?
I think me and everybody else right now is very Taeyun pilled,
Yeah,
and I think this matchup could go the other way, but with the internal stuff, the question marks we have about Lehends, I just think that's even more points against Nongshim if you're trying to make a prediction here. So I'm gonna go B and K. I do feel pretty strongly that they are the favorites, and I'm gonna lock it in. I think Taeyun's gonna pop off. I think that Nongshim have, like I said, bigger issues than, the narrative thing is Taeyun versus Diable, but the gameplay thing is like Scout versus Vikla. The gameplay thing is Kingen versus Clear, where those two players on B and K are looking much better than they are on Nongshim.
I just want to throw this out there. Diable has not won since week 3 when they beat Kiwoom DRX. Since then, it's been losses all the way around, and that is not good here for Diable. I do think, as much as he's played well here, Wolf, he hasn't had a carry performance. Like, it has been just straight losing, straight carry performance to a victory. It's been straight losing, not even a series win or a game win since week 4 against no, yeah, haven't had a game win since their series win against Kiwoom DRX. A lot of losing does a lot to your confidence to play on the edge there. So give me B&K Fearex and Taeyun. I think it'll be a topside special here. I think Clear is going to hold Kingen, but more importantly, Raptor is going to refine form this week, especially in a losing effort against Gen G. I bet he's going to play well. And then finally, Hanoi versus KT before we all pick the bros over Kiwoom DRX.
This one is interesting because of Perfect having a big return to form. I mean, it's not the same that we saw in the first few weeks, but I'm still a little worried about Zayas right now. And it's not just like ranged picks like the Tristana. Like, he's just overall looking a little out of sorts. It's weird to say this about Zayas, right? Zayas is someone who has in the past had consistency problems, but it's been often more about like, okay, he struggles into Doran for some reason, and like, oh, in this best of 5, like he had an off day, but he was like, sometimes you go, okay, Zeus had a bad day, but he's still the best top laner in the LCK. It's just like, we know that sometimes he can kind of fall off. I just started to notice it in the road to EWC, like the EWC qualifiers for the first time that, hey, something's a little weird, and it's kind of continued through the LCK. So something to think about for sure. But my man Zeka is going to get it done, and BDD is real rough right now. Like I hope BDD bounces back, but he and Cuz specifically have been a problem. And when you look at the strongest point of Hanwha, which is Kanavi and Zeka right now, it's a bad matchup for KT. So the more I think about it, the more I'm like not even really entertaining the idea that Zeus could be a weak point that could be exploited here. I'm gonna go for Hanwha.
Yeah, I think BDD has just played Phase Rush champions in protest. 3 out of his 4 games that he's played since the patch have been former Phase Rush champions. With Ari being the only one that didn't use Phase Rush before he played that in the most recent loss against BNK FearX. Just just get him back on his ear. Just get him back on his ear. It'll be fine. Things will be fine. But yes, give me Hanwha Life Esports here, the informed #1 squad. Yeah. All right. And then the bros. I'm
Bro,
excited.
easy 2-0 week. Easy 2-0
Easy
week.
2-0 week. Nothing to see here, bros, except I just get so stressed every time they play. Also, I can't be such the biggest bro fan when Wadid is on the desk, because then Wadid's hamming it up. And then if I ham it up, then it looks disrespectful to whoever they're playing. Like I was happy that I was on the desk without Wadid on the desk in the most recent bro win. That was nice.
Bro
All
are
right,
gonna
y'all.
go up to, by the way, if they win both of these games, they'll hit 50. There'll be 7-7. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like they're
It's
actually
just
at 50% win rate if they win this. And then they can only go up above 50, right? Like
all
I'm
right.
on the
Yeah.
train. I'm believing
No.
right now before
I
reality
don't.
crashes down and they face DPlus
Yeah.
and T1 in week 8.
You could be on the train. Stop driving us like into crazy town where you're like, oh, they could just keep going up, and then just ignore the fact that they're gonna play DPlus T1, Hanwha and Genji at the end. Like, no, they'll just keep going up. All right, there, everyone. That does it here from us. A great week of League of Legends. Another road show in the book, and we've got a massive Saturday showdown to build towards at the end of week 7. We'll have it all covered here on Let's Cover Korea. Bye bye.